What's up, hot sauce? I am Alicia Shepherd, and you are joining us today for the Commercial Blueprint, where I find real world commercial real estate brokers and bring them right to you for transparent, honest stories around what built their careers, what made them titans of their deals, and what they're seeing in today's market. So you don't have to figure out this roadmap on your own, but you have a crystal clear blueprint for exactly what best next step to take. Today, I'm interviewing Blas Fernandez out of Southern California with the brokerage Union Pacific. Blas has an incredible resume behind him and a ton of experience in all practices of commercial real estate, but especially when it comes to leasing and getting the deal done for landlords. Blas, I want to just let you dive right in. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your team, your brokerage, your business, and let's go from there.
Yeah. Well, first off, thank you for having me here. Like I mentioned earlier, I've always been a fan and I appreciate everything you've done for me, even though
I
we worked
gotcha.
together for a short period. But yeah, so I'm Blas. I've got a team called Icon Properties. I've been going at this full time and left my job about 6 years ago. And so I pretty much was on my own for about a year and a half until I discovered that I wanted to build a team. The broker at that time said, "Hey, look, and based on your trajectory, you're probably going to want to start building a team." So I started building in my second year after being alone for about 2 years. And then from there, I've just been building and learning of what it is to be a leader, and it's been a really interesting road. It's been challenging. There's been some highs, there's been some lows. There's been people that stuck with me, and there was people who left me, and everything that you can think of in the middle. But we're a team of 10 sales agents right now, and we do most of our work in LA County, San Fernando Valley. We've got a few people on our team that primarily focus on leasing, from retail to some industrial buildings. I myself focus on retail and industrial as well. And then we have a couple individuals that focus solely just on multifamily. So it's kind of cool how the team has come together now, just because there was a point we were all just scrambling and doing everything. And, after just kind of taking advice from specific brokers, everybody was like, look, you should kind of categorize the asset classes along with the agents and make sure that, everyone is not just a jack of all trades. And we started doing that about a year ago. And we're at a really good place now, solely focused on listing buildings, right? And anything that's pretty much, like I said, retail, industrial, office, and Melina and Arthur are the ones that kind of head up the apartment division. So been leading for 4 years. And like I said, it's been great. I love doing it.
That shows. It shows that you love doing it.
I do. I really do. I mean, even with, just certain things that have happened throughout the years, I kind of like giving people advice that no one ever gave me, because I know what that can do to somebody. I know how important it is to have a mentor and someone that can guide you in a specific direction. I had one. And so I try to be that person for the people, the agents that are on my team. So it's been a fun journey.
Man, okay, so let's back it up because I think so many times newer commercial real estate agents or someone who's thinking about getting into a career in commercial real estate, they look up and they go, what should my first year or two look like? And you were on such a trajectory that at the end of 2 years, you were ready to start a team. What did those first 2 years look like? What got you from A to B?
So I think why my trajectory was pretty fast, because when I transitioned out of the company that I was working for, I was working for a very prominent family that owned a lot of commercial real estate all throughout Southern California, probably like 150 shopping centers. And so I learned a lot. I was a student of this family and the principals for 5 years. So you can only imagine, when I had a deal, I went directly, knocked on the door of the principal, and he would coach me through the leasing process and the buying process. So I learned and grasped so much. I started with them without a license. And then within 2 years, I fell in love with the business. And I'm like, I've got to get my license. And they're like, no, you don't. You don't have to get your license. Just
Slow down, stay put. We're winning with
now.
you here.
Yeah, just keep doing this. You're doing great. So what I did was, around my third year of working for this company, I realized this is going to be my career path. Got my license, slowly started to kind of think about what my exit was going to be. So I started to really build up a book of clientele while I had this job. And
so all of that was like before you actually took the step to become a full-time.
All of that, yep. Around year
That's the
3,
job.
I decided, I'm like, this is what I'm going to do. Correct. So I had my job. I had no license. In year 3 is when I was like, I'm going to become a real estate agent. I want to be licensed. I want to be respected. I don't want to just be this leasing guy that works for this family. And so I started to build my book of business. And what happened was, year 4, I had clients that were offering me opportunities to list buildings, but I had a job with this family. I was an employee. And I remember I listed this property on LoopNet with the family when I worked for them. And they found out and they were very upset with me. They're like, look, you work for us, you can't be listing properties. And so I had to take that listing down. I was really bummed, but that was the belief that I needed. I'm like, all right, I'm just going to keep doing this until I'm ready. So year 5, which was around January 2020, I quit my job. I went full force. And so that was great. But then COVID happened. And I was like, oh my God, like no
Yeah,
one really.
I was just running the math in my head. I'm like, how is that timeline great? You were 3 months in when the rug comes out from underneath you and the
Yeah.
world changes.
And the world changed. And we had just had our second child, Talia. And I was like, great, I quit my job, babe. And she's like, great. And then 4 months into quitting, I had no deals, no commission pending, no pipeline, just because, again, the world just was turned upside down. So I remember I called my broker at the time and I said, look, I don't think this is going to work out. This is just way too hard. No one's transacting. Like, people are not coming out of their homes. Everyone's got a mask on. And then he gave me some really good advice. He's like, well, look, you can either quit now and go back to work because it's going to get 20 times harder. And I was just like, oh my God, like this is already hard as it is. So pretty much I kept my head down, kept cold calling. I called up our CoStar rep and I said, how do you cold call? How do you reach out to an owner? How do you get business? Thankfully, he was an old Marcus rep and he kind of gave me some tips.
CoStar reps or old Marcus reps.
Yeah.
I'm surprised I didn't end up at CoStar. If you leave M&M, you go straight to CoStar.
Well, you're a
just
badass. So you're different. But no, if it wasn't for that script that this CoStar rep gave me, I don't know where I would be. So I just started dialing away, and so I had my own little cubicle office and just pounded the phones. And then what I would do differently is I would pound the phones Monday through Wednesday, and I would also door knock on Thursdays. And that was, I think, the component that really changed the game. Now, what does that mean? So if I'm
Yeah,
cold
I
calling,
want you to unpack that because I think a lot of commercial agents hear door knock and they throw a flag on the field and go, "Oh, that's too residential."
yeah.
But that's brilliant. That's so smart.
So check this out. And this is where I was like, oh wow, this is gonna work. I just need something. I need a listing quick. So I cold call Monday through Wednesday religiously all day when I got into the office. And at that time it was COVID.
Like
No
all
one was
day. How
and
many calls a day? Let's get really granular on this. How
yeah,
many
so
calls a day were
basically
you
I would get in the office around 8:30. I would start my calls around 9:30. I would go till 12, drive home, eat a sandwich, come back to the office, get back on the phones by 1 and be done by like 5. I would still finish early because I was just drained from the phones. I'm not going to lie and say I dialed till 7, 8 p.m. I just didn't have that kind of, I was hungry, but the phones would be, I would just be beat
100
up.
dials a day will take it out of you.
It
And it
was a lot.
sounds so simple, but like, I don't know about you. I've never gotten comfortable with a dialer in commercial simply because of the minute details that we need to digest quickly alongside a property. The dialer just always felt inaccessible.
It's true. You're totally right. And when I started, we call it like CoStar dialing. We just go on CoStar, you pick a farm, and it was easy. It was very slow paced. And so I would dial Monday through Wednesday, and then I would keep track of who I had a good conversation with that was an owner user throughout those 3 days. Then I would basically have comps ready, and by Thursday, I would have these comp sets for each owner that I spoke to. But I had to meet in that same week, otherwise they would forget who I was. And
Yeah.
thankfully, I have a unique name, so it helped a little bit as well. So I would cold call Monday through Wednesday, write down who gave me time on the phone, take those comp sets, door knock them because their owner users are at the building. And I would go in there and just have a good conversation with them. Hey, just stopping by. I've got a listing appointment right next to you. Want to stop by? I'm already going to be here. And so that kind of edified me a little bit and gave me some validation because they're like, well, he's not just cold knocking my door. He's here to list a
He
property.
has a purpose.
He has a purpose. And so I just thought of using that and I started running that play. And then one day I got a call from a guy in North Hollywood, a 10929 Chandler. And this guy called me and he was like, hey, I've been getting your calls. You've dropped off your material. If you want to help me sell this building, you better get over here now because I'm going to jump on a plane in Burbank in like 4 hours. So I went over there and I got my first listing for cold calling. It took me about 3 months. And then from there, it was just game over. Because then I was like, wow, this actually works.
Well, and it does work. If you work the process, it works. And you've, whether you meant to or not, laid out three core points that I want to make sure we just memorialize, right? One, having a job that gives you experience and exposure in commercial real estate is a great first step if you're interested in commercial real
Yep.
estate. Get a
Yeah.
JV job that has a salary. And that doesn't look like telling a real estate agent you'll be their assistant and learn on their deals. First off, agents who want to do that pay shit. So that's not, you don't want that job.
Right.
You don't want that job. Go find a real one that's in
Yeah.
management, asset portfolio management, working directly for the family. That was killer. Two, you have a routine alongside your prospecting. You didn't just wing it.
Yes.
Here we are years later, and you still knew exactly what your schedule for those days looked like.
Oh
That's
yeah.
because you probably lived that for a while.
Yeah. Yeah.
And three, you got to have more than one form of prospecting. You can't just slam the phones. You can't just do social media. You can't just mail a bunch of letters or email. You got to get out there and work a couple of different avenues. And
That's a
you
good
started
point.
with the phones and with door knocking. Over time, what other forms of prospecting have you leaned into that are getting you great results?
Yeah, so great call. I mean, that's you're spot on. So obviously you started with the dialing, then we went to the canvassing. And then basically I got really comfortable in my own skin. I met this gentleman named Chris Johnson who coaches NBA players. I met him at a gym and I just kind of was just like, look, I love your social media. And then can you give me any tips or anything? And then he just gave me some really good advice. So he just said, you got to get in front of the camera. Don't worry about who you are, what you look like. You're not special. Just get out there, record and put content out. And so I'm like, okay. So I just started putting content out because there wasn't a lot of commercial brokers doing content at that time. This was probably, I
There
mean, I don't know,
still isn't in like
there still is
comparison to what we see on the residential side, not a whole lot.
not a
It's
whole
huge
lot. This was
opportunity.
probably 3.5 years ago when I started it. And I remember there was some commercial guys that, kind of they threw jabs. They were like, you're trying to do this, you're trying to look like a residential agent, but I'm like, I'm just trying to be different. I don't want to do what you're doing because I think this is going to work. It's untapped. And so doing that really helped. It created another avenue of just awareness of who I was. And I started to attract residential followers. And so I'm like, okay, so if I'm attracting residential agents, at some point, the high profile ones, or just the ones that are doing more deals, will essentially come to me if they have something they need help with, a deal, a commercial deal. And little by little, that kind of became a whole nother category or, funnel of business that started to convert into commissions. And so we fast forward, I hired a content guy that kind of helps me out to this day. And we curated more content around how do we help residential agents not just take their business, but also include them in the business and also give them some education and coaching throughout that process so they still feel like they're a hero. No one just wants to get kicked outside and make a referral fee. So cold calling, door knocking, shooting the content and curating that to residential agents. And then we started hosting trainings and inviting agents, and that was just more awareness. And then we would shoot that content. Last year, I was talking to somebody about our numbers, but last year we did a little over 300,000 in commissions from residential referral business.
Isn't that amazing? And that's
Amazing.
commissions out or commissions that you gained after paying their referral fee?
Commissions that we earned from the referral fee.
That's amazing.
It's insane. So at that point, we start to see obviously there's so much value there. So let's kind of build more partnerships. And before it was like, all right, let's just get this out to everybody. But now it's more of like, who can I develop relationships that's a bigger player in that space? Because they're obviously going to have that kind of clientele. So yeah, I would say those are like 4 or 5 pillars that where we can generate, interest and leads and
And drum up business.
and grow that business. Exactly.
Yeah. It's so interesting. I was with Marcus Millichap before. I'm now at one of the like resi commercial firms as their vice president. I co-lead the commercial division nationally. And it's so interesting to witness the difference in conversation that happens around referral business. And it was such an eye-opener, right? You go into the national big boy, big shop commercial real estate firms, referral is not talked about at
Yeah.
all. I think in all the time I was at M&M, I did one referral deal because that just wasn't a backbone of our business. And when I moved to KW Commercial, that changed drastically because it was like, this is one of your biggest funnels. You're in this army of residential agents. Why wouldn't you tap into that?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when you learn how to control that, how to get the referrals that actually feed your business versus drain your business.
Right.
That is a missed opportunity for any commercial agent sitting at one of the like institutional shops. If
One,
you're not building a relationship with residential agents who refer you business that either their broker doesn't allow them to do, they don't feel confident or comfortable doing, that they know they're not the right fiduciary for their clients, you are missing a giant chunk of your business. You're missing out probably
100%.
a third of it. Yeah.
100%, and as you kind of go through the motions of a challenging market, you've got to think about how you can produce income when the market's tough and the market's tight. So you've got to get creative, you've got to pivot. And so we started kind of really focusing on, all right, well, there's also a lot of time wasted, right? And everyone's lead isn't a good lead, so you've got to know how to listen to the conversation and really identify, okay, is this going to be a time waster, or is this going to convert to dollars? And so we've also gotten better at that, just qualifying the lead too, so that's been a big hit for us.
I
Yeah.
love that. So if we looked at, you mentioned time wasters. I want to talk for a second. If we looked at listings and we really classify, how do we feel out the difference between an owner and a seller? Because anyone could raise their hand and say, Blas, I'll let you list my property for 5 million. But if it's only worth, 3.8 on a good day and you list it anyway, that's you exposing your business, your expenses, your checkbook for my unrealistic expectations. I'm not a
Yeah.
seller, period. I'm an owner that has like a dream. When you run into those, what are some of the ways? I want to kind of take this in two layers. What are some of the ways first you identify this is an unmotivated client and we need to proceed with caution?
Yeah, that's something that's always going to come up. And I think as you become better in the brokerage business, I think that if we scale it back, when you start the business, you kind of, at least for me, you kind of have to take those overpriced deals. I mean, it's either you have deals and you have listings, you get some market share, or you're just a junior trying to get the best deal possible to sell, which is not going to happen initially in your career. So how do I identify? I mean, when I meet sellers that are just very closed off and are like, hey, this is my price, this is what I want, this is what I think it's worth. When I hear a lot of this is when I feel a lot of emotion attached to
Great
the property,
indicator.
I just already know, okay, this is a seller that's not going to appreciate or really understand a broker opinion, right? Which is, we're supposed to be advisors. And when I feel that emotion attached to the property, those are some red flags for me. I think it's worth this. Well, I'm not going to look at any other offer. The price it has to have this number in front of it. Those for me are red flags. And initially when I started, I would take on whatever I could take on. But now we really try to look out for those red flags, because what happens is, and I learned this through the downside of the market, which was this year. I learned so much because I never felt the downside. So I
This is your
enter a
first time through
position
it.
like, well, this is my first one. I was really trying to figure out how I can prepare for it, because the reality is I haven't been through it. And, I would say that I've had a pretty successful career since I started. And this was going to be a testing time for me. And I learned so much. I lost a lot. I gained a lot. But the one thing I did learn is really keeping your eye on your P&L and your overhead. And that's really where I got beat up this year, just because when you are a listing agent, you hold so much weight on the listings and the inventory. You've got to house it.
Yeah.
You're looking at to CoStar and Crexy and all these things.
And the signage. Signage in our space is not like a $30 sign or
So
$35 sign on the residential side. Yeah.
yeah, it gets expensive, and it's funny. I mean, I came to a point where I sat with my team. I'm like, look, this is the overhead. We were running at like about 23,000 a month to house a small team with an office and all that, and all the resources and systems. And we started to have very different conversations with our sellers. We were trying to be the second and third broker in. That was our switch.
What a
Boom.
great strategy. I don't want to be the first listing agent. I want to be the second or third.
Yep.
When someone else has already taken that overpriced listing,
Yep.
sellers already gotten beat up by the market, which, dear sellers, sorry about that.
Yeah.
But now they come, if they're still motivated, their expectations have maybe readjusted to meet the market. That's a
Yeah.
great strategy.
That was our strategy. I'm like, let's switch it up. Let's give the listing away to the first broker. Let's voice that to the seller. Hey, look, I think you should go with this broker. They're reputable. This is the
Yeah.
price you think is good. But let me have second place, and we'll stay in communication throughout that time. And so what we would do is we would just watch the listing. And then month 4, month 5, touch base with the seller. We knew it wasn't going to move. We already started a relationship established, time frame established. So when month 6 came, Blas, you're in the picture. Blas, let's take your price. Boom,
Right.
it moved.
Should have listened. Yeah. That's the unfortunate part when the emotions get involved with the sticks and the bricks, because sometimes we just emotionally have a number we feel we deserve on real estate. I've been guilty of it. And so you look up and you need the market to show you the logic instead.
You do.
That's really wise to compete for the second spot.
And sometimes it didn't work. There were times where we like, oh man, I hope we get this opportunity. I hope this doesn't sell. Yeah, I mean,
Whoops.
these are some
Yeah.
bigger deals, but
Well, I mean, if another agent, like let's say you and I go compete on a listing and there's a third agent and they're telling them some price that we think is wackadoodle, if another agent can get that owner that price and they see something I don't, I
yeah,
do want that owner to go list with them.
yeah.
That agent must know some secret sauce that I don't have solved.
Yeah, that really helped. So I started to kind of go on pitch meetings with our junior agents and just kind of using that approach. And, for the most part, it worked. We gained a lot of respect out of it. If anything, the seller was just like, wow, what do you mean you want me to give this away? We're just like, no, we think it's good that you try a price with this. This is, we don't think you would move at that price, but try them. And then it ended up working out really well for us.
This is your first shift. You look up and you're looking at the market. What are the warning signs that you're learning about that you think other agents should be watching out for?
That's a great question. That's a really good question. So I think when you're on the list side and you have a good amount of market share as a small team, you really feel you have a good pulse on the market because you base everything on the clicks, on the impressions, on the phone calls, on the emails, on the text messages. You can feel when activity's up and when it's down, right? Just because you have so much inventory floating out there. So I would say, some of the things that you would want to look for is obviously if things go really stagnant, you're not getting any calls or inquiries consistently for a long time frame. That's for sure. That's not a good sign. Another sign is, just deals consistently falling out of escrow. I would say within like the day 20 and on, for I don't know why it was always like 3 weeks in and deal was just falling apart. When you see a lot of buyers go into escrow and try to retrade at a big number right off the bat because of where the market's at, these are all signs that like, okay, well, this is, the market's shifting, it's changing. The mindset of the buyer is changing, but it's your job as the broker to kind of set those expectations, from the beginning. But and then also too, just like the environment, when you're around a bunch of brokers and you're just talking about deals and no one's talking about deals anymore, it's like, oh man, this is not a good sign. Everyone's talking about the same thing. Rates are high. All my deals are falling out of escrow. No one's calling on my listing. My listing's been sitting. Those are all things that are just constantly floating around all the time. So I would say if you start to hear a lot of that, that's probably where the market's headed.
I put my coach hat on when I hear that. And I immediately reach for the problem is us, dear agent, right? If you're feeling those pieces in your business, chances are you need to reevaluate your pricing strategy. Chances are you need some better vendors and relationships in your business so that you can provide like more pivotal and agile resources. I just had a coaching client earlier this week that it was like a light bulb went off when he's in a market where everything is coming out of conventional financing and moving to hard money lending. But in his market, even the hard money lending is starting to kind of like soften and dry up a little bit.
Yeah.
But his metrics are not as competitive on a deal as they are in your market.
Mm-hmm.
And my coaching to him was you go to Southern California, you find hard money lenders that have an investment metric where your territory is performing right now, and you see if they'll come lend up in your market because they're comfortable with the investment metrics. So they would go deploy capital there. At least they have the potential to, and it's our job as the agent to find out if that's a yes or a no, right?
Really good advice. Wow, yeah.
And it was this like little light bulb that went off of his head of like, oh, I am not victim to whatever the lending markets do. My clients are not victim to whatever the market does.
Yeah.
The whole reason they hire us is they want someone who's got war paint under their eyes when the shit hits the fan. That's what they're looking for.
I always tell our team, I'm like, there's two economies. There's the world economy where all the noise is, and then we have our team economy. We have to always stays strong and optimistic. That's the culture that you have to cultivate all the time. There's always going to be bad news, and But the idea is like your team, your second family, you've got to have a separate economy. It's got to be positive deal flow, positive conversations, because we need positive reinforcements all the time,
That's
especially in the
right.
business we're in. And one last thing regarding your signs, seller financing. I've never done this many seller financing deals in my life, but
Oh, it's
you'll start
huge right now.
you'll start to see a lot of that as well.
Yeah, with anyone that has a debt product on their real estate that's assignable, that's more attractive than the rates I can find today, and that has some term on it that gets me through, the next 18 to 24 months. So I at least have some timeline to play with what's happening in the lending markets
Yeah.
all day long. If you can offer seller financing on a deal, that's a great opportunity.
Yep.
I flip to assignable, but seller financing, if they're free and clear, also great opportunity because
100%. I bought my
just
first
get that.
commercial property last year through a seller finance deal. It was amazing.
Congratulations. What'd you buy?
I bought an office property and smaller office. It was on the market. It didn't sell for 6 months. One of my agents took me to meet the seller to get the listing, but I went in with a different mindset and gave him an offer and found out he had no debt on the property. He accepted my offer and got
Even
a
better.
smoking deal. A year later, I sold it to the Bus family of all people.
Nice.
Crazy, yeah.
You gotta
So
love when that happens, right? You find the opportunity because you're in the market. I think
yeah,
that's like the unsung, untold like hero story of being a commercial real estate agent or broker is you're gonna see the deals before anybody else if you get your ass on the phones. Why wouldn't you do it? It's the easiest job on earth to just crush it in.
yeah, you gotta just kind of like. I mean, I always say like, if you're in this business and I don't want to be cold calling for the rest of my life. I want to be like these principals and investors that we send deals. I want people to
That's
send me
right.
deals, and so if you don't start buying at some point,
You'll never get there.
you'll just never get there. And it's hard. There's not one property that I've ever bought that was easy. It's always going to be hard. And that will never change. And you just got to suck it up and buy it, work your ass off and do what it takes to keep it.
That's what goes on the Blas Fernandez coffee mug, "Suck it up and buy it." That's it, that's your
Do,
quote.
do, do, do you want to see what's right on my desk?
Yeah. What does it say? Love it, love it. Alright,
Yeah.
let's close it out with actually I'm gonna ask you a speed round, so that'll be the closeout. But let's go one more space. If you were a brand new commercial real estate agent getting in, knowing what you know today, what would be the first, second, and third priorities that you would focus on while getting started?
So I think for starters, I would for sure, first thing I would do is I would go look for the best training at a commercial real estate firm. That's a fact for sure.
Yeah.
Because I always think like, what if I started at a true firm that just focused on commercial? What kind of training would I have had and who would I be today? So I would start with that. I would find a commercial real estate company that has good training. Two, I would 100% join the team. I would not do this on my own. If I could
Standing ovation on that advice all day long.
I
Yeah.
could do it all over again, I would for sure join a team. And number three, I would just say, don't do what the other brokers are doing. Do what they're doing, but mix it up with what you think will work too, and include your personality. You don't have to be this suit and tie guy that has his chin up every day. Be a normal human being and speak to people like
Mm,
people, because that's how people want to be treated. I've learned
that's
that.
right.
And it's just be human, like speak to people normally. And I think that's what people want.
Yeah. There's this great book called The Mensch Method. We'll grab the link and drop it in the comments when we post this, called The Mensch Method. And it really comes back to like to be that Yiddish term, a mensch, you have to be authentic. You have to be wholesome in yourself and you have to be trustworthy in almost in an iconic kind of way. I think that that is what is missing from so many brokers. They try to be the paper doll version of what they think they're supposed to be
Yep.
versus just show up and be yourself. And I mean, that comes from the gal that has orange hair in commercial real estate. And yet I know that that's worked for me because my clients roll up and I call them hot sauce just like I will call you hot sauce.
Yeah.
I'm just unapologetically me, and that works. It pays off in spades.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that. Okay, speed round. You ready? I won't ask you what your least favorite deal was, but in your career so far, what has been your favorite deal you've ever done?
My favorite deal. Oh, that's a good
Yeah.
question.
Your deal, the one you bought, the office building.
Yep. My
Yeah,
deal.
it's pretty easy to be proud of the ones that we buy. That's awesome.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, there's been,
Love that.
this is just like, I'll never forget that deal. Yeah.
I love that. When you look up and you look at recreational fun hobbies, after hour events or experiences that commercial real estate agents go put themselves into, what do you think are the activities that an agent could go do after work that would put them in the room with the most clients?
Great question. Do activities, that involve your kids, because your kids know other kid, and those kids have parents. I think that's been one of the coolest things where I've been able to be more parents, and it's actually leveraged and translated to good business relationships that have earned us a commission. And that wasn't the mindset, but I would just say, do activities with your kids, with his other parents. Don't sell yourself, just be you, and just be natural, like you said, right? Don't be that sales guy. Nobody wants to be around that person. And then always have, I think it's important to have you time too, time where you're just away from the phone. For me, it's just biking. I get away usually for 2 to 3 hours a weekend, no phone, just me in the mountain. And just, I think every agent or everybody should have some alone time. But activities with your kids, you're always going to meet other parents. So I think that's important. Aside from like the networking stuff, like
Right.
the ICSCs and some of the local events. Those are always neat too, but you're just going to run into brokers all day long. So
Right.
I like
Which I
this.
mean, it's great for building your reputation in the community, but
100%.
you're probably not finding your next client there.
Yeah, it's been a fun journey though. It's been a fun journey. I'm
That's
loving
awesome.
every day of it. Yeah.
The one thing I will include, because like you, Blas, I looked up when I got to a certain point in my career and I said that training was not ready and available as much as it should be, specifically with the amount of wealth that we deal with in our careers. Like you have to go to very specific brokerages to even have a chance in hell that you're going to get trained properly. And that was what inspired me to create Nucleus, which is our commercial training company that my partner Bruce and I own. And I will tell you, I think we're at a point finally where I look up and I can say authentically, like we have created a training platform for commercial real estate outside of the firm where if
Yeah.
someone really wanted to have that same educational experience, but actually go deeper and with more access to more like transferable knowledge, Nucleus is now a player on the field for that. And you can learn more about that at nucleuscre.com.
I
I'll
love
send
that.
you some info. We've got all sorts of training. I just taught for 4 hours today about commercial real estate law. That
Wow.
was, I mean, it's a fun course, but we talk about it from a really pragmatic, experiential place. Also reminding agents you are not an attorney. So you can't do the legal work, but you better understand your contracts and your forms inside and out and how to really understand
Yeah.
what that fiduciary duty is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love it.
Awesome.
Please send it
Well,
over.
absolutely. Blas, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been great to catch up. I can't wait for other people to hear this and get to experience you. And I look forward to staying in touch and watching your career.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. It's been fun. Thank you. I really appreciate it.